Hi, I'm John McElroy here, talking all things automotive. As the auto industry moves from internal combustion cars to electric cars, it's opening up all kinds of opportunities for investment and jobs. But it's also going to be a very painful transition for traditional automakers, their employees, their suppliers, and even the communities where IC engine and transmission plants are located. I wanted to get some idea of how this transition is going to happen. So I reached out to James Martin, who's a powertrain expert at IHS Markit. I think he's one of the best engine guys in the business. We just had him on Autoline After Hours, and he told me from his own personal experience how tough it was to wind down just one engine program. That was the LT5 supercharged V8 that went in the Corvette ZR1 and was made by Mercury Marine in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
I had the responsibility to develop a plan to take the LT5 engine out of production. I was actually at Stillwater at Mercury Marine when the last engines came off the line because my team was buying them to package them up and put them in storage for warranty service. And that was actually just kind of the cherry on top of the whole pie of making that into production plan. But in bringing that engine out of production, we wound up having to spend a lot of time working with existing suppliers, explaining to them that your volume is going from here to zero in this amount of time. Or that, and this was an even tougher message for some of them, but we still need you to support service. We still need you to report to support warranty replacement of components, and it was very difficult for those suppliers. Some of them went out of business during the process. Some of them went out of business before the engines left the line.
Listen to what he said. That's pretty alarming. Suppliers were going out of business even before the production of that engine came to an end, and that was on a specialty, low-volume engine. So what happens when a traditional car company has to shut down an IC engine that's mass-produced? The ripple effect is going to be massive. Ford, for example, makes several hundred thousand of what it calls the Fox engine in Europe, makes them in Germany and Romania. It's a 1-liter engine that's available in most of its passenger vehicles in Europe. But Ford says it is going to go all electric in Europe by 2030. In automotive terms, that's right around the corner. That means the Fox engine is going to have to be wound down in just a few years. So what's that mean for those engine plants?
Which means the Fox engine is going to wind its way out of production at some point in time in the very near future. That has to be managed not only within Ford, but it has to be managed with every supplier that's on that project. And it's got to be done in a way that when those suppliers finally turn off the lights, it's not before Ford is done with their obligation of fitting those vehicles in those engines in the last vehicles that are to get them, and also supporting the serviceability of those engines in the customer's hands. So it's a really tight balance that's got to be played here.
How in the world are automakers going to handle that delicate balance? After all, traditional automakers make all kinds of families of engines. They make 4s and inline 6s and V6s and V8s and diesels. And that doesn't even include all the different kinds of transmissions that go with them. And they make tens of millions of them. They can't shut them all down at once because that would be a disaster. So how are they going to handle it?
I think that most of the manufacturers are going to try to judiciously draw back, probably do it on a platform by platform basis, and try to reduce their scale footprint for each of the major engine product families as they go along, and cause as little disruption as possible. But it's hard to see this happening without some level of disruption. When you look at the size in terms of volume of some of these engine platforms, it's just going to be really too difficult to bring them down in a real relaxed fashion. There's going to be some stress in the system.
I've asked a number of top executives in the industry how they plan to wind down their IC powertrain operations in the future. I really didn't get any good answers from any of them, probably for 2 reasons. Number one, They don't want to panic the people that work in those plants, and they don't want to panic the communities where those plants are located. Number two, I don't think they really know themselves how they're going to do it. So I asked James what he thinks is going to happen.
I think it's both things. I think it's, a part of it is the plan is not fully baked yet. And some of that plan, has to come together looking at not just what is the impact on our operations. I mean, we're going from a scale of hundreds of thousands of a particular type of engine a year down to tens of thousands and eventually out. But there's also a concern in and for the supplier community. If you're a leader at one of the big three, Ford, Stellantis, GM, you've got to be concerned about your supply base, because if you start to wind product down too fast, you're upsetting their economies of scale and you're upsetting their employment base. And guess what you're doing when you do that? You're upsetting your supply base. So what you may have planned as a strategic and well-managed wind down in volume of a particular engine program or platform might now become chaotic when your rod supplier says, I got to close shop. Now what do you do? So yeah, I think they're very closed-mouthed about that for a reason, because it's a very tightrope that they've got to walk to be able to do this in any sort of a manageable fashion.
Engine plants and transmission plants are often the largest employers in the communities where they're located. They provide the tax base that pays for teachers and schools, for police and firefighters, even garbage collection. When those plants go away, and most of them will, the loss of those jobs and that tax base could be devastating for those communities. Several years ago, the UAW put out a white paper on this topic. It's called Taking the High Road: Strategies for a Fair EV Future. It's actually a very detailed and well thought out report. And in that report, the UAW identified 20,000 IC powertrain jobs that are at risk just in Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. Clearly, some of those jobs can make the transition to electric vehicles. Somebody's got to make the electric motors and gearboxes and assemble the battery packs. But that doesn't mean that somebody machining crankshafts for an IC engine today is suddenly going to be making battery packs tomorrow. Besides, that battery pack job could be 5 states away. Look, I'm bringing this all up because there's not a lot of public attention on this issue. My fear is that people are only going to wake up to what's going on when plants start shutting down. At that point, it's too late. What we need to do is bring this issue out in the open, and I hope start a national dialogue about what we're going to do. Because if we start early and really think it through, we're going to manage the situation a whole lot better than just sitting on our hands waiting until plants start closing left and right. Like I said at the very beginning, if we do it right, there could be a lot of opportunity. I'm John McElroy. I've been covering this auto industry for over 40 years. This is my way to share what I see coming with you. And if you like these videos, please subscribe to our channel, because they don't follow any schedule. They'll just pop up whenever I have something worth saying.